What's up, everybody? This is A7X fan Ben. Welcome back to the Pirates CSG podcast. This is the next part of the interview with the amazing game designer Mike Mulvihill, and you can find all the resources and whatnot that we talked about in the description below. And please consider also checking out the eBay affiliate link in the description to help support my content and everything I do to try to keep this game alive. Thanks for listening, and let's get to the episode. What are your favorite memories of Pirates CSG?
Got so many. The working. I remember literally spending time at work, still, trying to stop frames on the Pirates of the Caribbean movie because back then there was no like screenshot archive of anything. Just to get like a semi unblurry picture of a character in the background that we were going to use, one of the Davy Jones crew or the crew in the the various pirates from the other factions and all that kind of stuff. It
Yeah.
just that was always cool. I'll remember like that first Gen Con where we was debuted, and when you watch somebody going, well, how do you measure? And I'm like, well, it's right here on the card, and then they're just eyes going, whoa, like literally like we invented like air. I mean, it was like crazy just the response that had. I remember, I think it was a few years in, like going and watching at like the one of the first tournaments we did, and watching people just like play it seriously. I don't mean seriously by not having fun, but playing it because there's a prize at the end versus playing it for like yucks at the table. I remember showing my girls the game. That was really huge because I think it was one of the first games that they really kind of got a sense of what I do for a living, and just the stuff, the toys, if you want. I mean, we had clicks figures all over the house, but this one was something that they knew didn't exist until I did it.
Yep.
So that was cool. The Santa character doing the sleigh and the Santa promo, that was really cool. That meant a lot to me. I actually was the one who created the idea for the clicks games. So the fact that we were able to continue that tradition into the Pirates game was really cool. It's like I said, I still think we keep one up almost all year now because it's just my wife just is like just loves it so much. Uh, I don't know, playing with you because it was whatever 15 years after playing the game, and here I am playing a game in a game shop where people are coming over and talking to us about this game that I haven't really thought much about in a long period of time. Yeah, was actually is now more etched in my memory than a lot of the stuff that happened back in the day. So that was cool. So thank you for that. That's a really awesome memory.
Thank
Um,
you.
but yeah, I think that covers my memories. I mean, there's
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that first Gen Con reminds me of I think Mike Selinker said a very similar thing about kind of debuting it to the public on a bigger scale for the first time, and people's minds were just blown. So it's pretty amazing.
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything you would have changed in hindsight other than like the rules we talked about on the last session or some of the
I
mechanics?
think in the big picture, I kind of wish that we would have looked at it early on as this kind of long play game. Um, but it wasn't. I mean, at the same time I was doing this game, I was doing the baseball game, and baseball's also a massive love of my life. And so I was working on these two games that were a split passion. And there's some part of me deep down that feels like maybe I didn't give Pirates the love I did. Obviously I did. The game lasted a long time and it had a good thing, but I there's a little bit of me that says, man, if you would have devoted if you were only working on Pirates, think of what we could have done, kind of thing. But that's not a regret. I think the biggest issue, really, and you bring it up in this meeting here, I don't think I would have ever thought of it or in this discussions. I don't think I would have ever thought about it back in the day. And that was the concept that, like, how do we, what else is this game have in it? The concept of a legacy game didn't exist at that time. Um, but like, could we have turned it into a scenario based long play game? Could we have done it in a sense of a um, uh, what would it have been if it would have been a giant battle, 1,000 point, or let's say even at the early stages, 100 point game? What does this mean? Again, it was constantly flying into the conflict of the mandate from above me, of what the game is and what it should be. And so taking that time early on to take that few steps back and say, but what if we can do these other things? The question is, would it have been worth it? Were the players involved like they are now with that level? How many people would we brought in and kept in if we would have had this bigger, wider open, for lack of a better term, more strategic gameplay path for them? I don't know, but to me, that's again, this is the storyteller in me hears you talking about that, and man, like I'm like, oh my god! First off, it's not the real world; it's kind of a real world adjacent. So we can have giant ocean, big oceans. We could have a preformed map that you play on, and this is the battle of Skull Island, or something like that. We could have done those kinds of scenario based gameplay without really stretching any of us. It's what I did for a living for before I started doing that. It's what Jordan did for a living before he started doing that. So the sell to him, from me to him, may not have been hard. The sell may have been like, where are we going with this? What's the long term plan? And like I said, Jordan had a very logical plan in his mind of what all the next steps were, and we basically had to talk him out of that. So by doing that, I think it stopped us from looking at some other options early on. But man, if I were to go back today and say, "Hey, let's do this," I would be looking at those other options, the scenario based, the big fleet play.
Mm,
How does this all work? What else can we do to do that kind of stuff? Like I said, it flies in contrast to what they wanted us to make the game
mm,
do, but it would have been more, I think, longer. It could have been more robust, longer, and differently. It would have been a very different kind of game for Wizkids at the time, but nothing that none of us made before. I mean, we made all those games before, so it would have been in our wheelhouse. That would have been the biggest thing. I think it would have been done. Uh, Part of my heart says bigger sets so that we could bring like we didn't have to ignore a faction once we came out with a new faction. We could have always tossed in a couple of ships or a couple of crew or a couple of ships to keep those fresh. I did feel like we were like setting you up to buy into this really cool faction, and then they never come out again.
yeah.
My guess is if there were complaints at the time, it may have been that. I don't remember them. Maybe it's just in my head. I think that there were complaints about that, like, hey, we did this really cool Norse with the cool Viking ships and the cool thing, and then we don't do them again. And people would go, I want more of those because that was cool. It was hard to justify because that's like now five and now six factions in every set, so everybody got less. But
Yeah.
I think if we could have figured out a way to do that, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
I think,
Nice.
and regrets are small and inconsequential
Yep.
because the game is still going on and super successful and really
Exactly.
coul. That's more of it's less of a regrets and more of, man, I wish we would have thought of this.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and I think the community has done a great job taking it in different directions and expanding kind of what people
100%.
realize
Go
real
community.
yeah, realize is possible with the game. I'll send you I don't know if you've seen it before on Board Game Geek. There's a scenarios document that I think is like 40 or 60 pages long. So I'll hit you up with some interesting house rules if you ever
Yeah, no,
get
that's
bored and want to
cool. Yeah,
peruse
I
some stuff.
like I say, that's all cool. I mean, I think that if you are playing this game and you love it, I always say this: we don't send the Pirates of the Crimson Seas to your house to punish you or police your game playing. We, if you take it to your house and you say, "I wanna do this with this game," dude, go for it, you know?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that people are still doing that and still using this game as their goal. That's really cool.
Yep. So I know you went to Smith and Tinker in like late 2007. How did you get out of Pirates that year? Was it kind of?
I left. I
Yep.
left WizKids.
Hmm.
I left WizKids on of my own accord. And then I did a spell doing some freelancing for a little bit. And then Jordan started up a new concern and he needed somebody who can make games. So I ended up over there.
Yep.
And that was cool because again, that was me taking my Sony Online Entertainment knowledge of the logic behind um, what a programmer needs in terms of logic to make a game, and then I went there, and that knowledge helped us make like new games. It allowed me to like also learn how to do like AI uh, construct like when you're playing against a computer, how to have the computer play at a logical level and what its decision tree is. And I learned that because I needed to say, here's how here, like I said before, how do we take this power and make a computer understand it in its language? And using that skills, at Smith and Tinker, then we created all kinds of um, new games.
Yeah. Love it. What do you think is the biggest reason that Pirate CSG went out of print?
Um, I would say it was a so if you look at it from a big picture of a company buying a company, then selling that company to another company to buy something. They NECA when they bought it from Tops was NECA being a place that made action figures and making a place that made collectible statues. It only made sense that they were buying WizKids at the time for its the hero clicks, the miniatures.
Yeah.
They had all the licenses. They already had that relationship with everybody. At that point, we had done horror clicks and we had done Halo, I think, is clicks, and so we could see a company could see how the clicks can merge with their other things. They probably already had infrastructure, and now they had a game that had a name and a following and had already existing licenses and properties. Unfortunately, none of that is Pirates. Pirates was a styrene-based game. The three styrene-based games that came after it did not ever do as well as Pirates did. And that includes a Star Wars game and a NASCAR game and our own proprietary game that we actually did cartoons for. Um, and none of them did anywhere near what Pirates did. Whether it's the fact that you're playing with pirate ships and it's the evocative nature of that, whether it's the post Pirates of the Caribbean hangover, or whether it was just a better game. All of those don't even matter. It's just that none of them. Star Wars is the biggest one of the biggest properties of the universe, and that
Yeah.
didn't go over. So we're in a position where we are. If you're buying the company and you're buying it for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, whatever it is, they're going to be, not where you're going to spend your money, especially if you just spend a lot of money to buy a company. So, if you bought a company and you wanted it to do this thing with miniatures and figures, and Pirates was not on that list, and even if it was selling decent, you have to put in a bunch of infrastructure. You have to get people who can create things in styrene. You have to hire you have to maintain the contract with the company that does styrene. You have to figure out somebody who can do those 3D graphic molds. It may just been a bridge too far for them. And that would be my guess, just from a 500,000 feet, business decision is that basically it was the odd man out. I mean, if you think about it, and then you could see that may have been the case because then they took all the various different um, clicks games and labeled them all hero clicks and put them all under one thing. So they basically, I mean, it wasn't just pirates that got the axe. They just started like merging and getting things. And I just think that in the long run, it was, as a new company buying stuff, they would have been making something that was truly out of their wheelhouse because they
Yeah.
didn't have that structure. That would be my guess. I mean, I don't know. I was, like I said, I was out of the company by that time. Um, I don't really know what the like. I was out of it when it was still owned by Wizkids, and
Yeah.
this is the Wizkids 3.0 phase where it was all new management and new ownership, and Tops was bought, and so it was a totally different experience and environment, and it was not. It was very, like, I guess I sensed it was not on stable grounds, and it ended up being that it got flipped within a couple years. So I don't feel like I was right, but I also don't feel like I was very wrong. My buddy Seth, the Seth that you met, was there till nearly the very end, and there's also kind of also a mind shift of like what does a brand mean, and is this a brand again? We spent a couple years trying to turn it into an IP, only to realize that no one was going to ever invest in that IP, and so that was a my guess is that also had a little bit to do with it. They couldn't flip it on its own, and so therefore, it was just easier to say no over time, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense, though. Yep. I think the next one realizing might be a better question for Tiffany, but do you know if the licensing agreement with Wizards of the Coast from 2007 was part of the reason why there were more non-pack products released in the later set, such as like the boxes, as opposed to like the 3.99 booster packs?
Uh I would say I don't know. Okay, I actually don't know the marketing plan for future sets. My guess would be it had zero to do with the licensing agreement with Wizards of the Coast, like zero to do with that. And my guess it would be was to try to figure out how to keep it at was to mimic a different success model. Again, the guy who said we want a booster pack in a 20-minute game, he hadn't been with the company now for 7 years at that point, right? And then the guy who was handed the set of instructions from that guy now hadn't been at the company for whatever you said, like 3 years, 3 years. So my guess is once this, the new as the new brand style started to occur, those two priorities were now no longer a priority. It was probably like what's evocative marketing, what's evocative branding, what's evocative sales, because that's what the new company wanted, the 3.0 company. And to be honest, the first company was not that, or the first versions of Pirates was not that. So my guess is try to make it more maybe different collectible model, maybe not even a collectible model, make it just a straight purchase, and then what you want is box product versus booster product. I can't answer that question, and Tiffany, like you said, Tiffany probably could, but I mean, the logic progression makes sense that they would have eventually gone in that direction. And again,
Oh,
that's one of the other reasons why I wasn't there. I didn't agree with the direction that they wanted to take the game. So.
okay. Interesting. Yep. Do you
But
think?
I don't think anything. No company dictates how a company works, even if there's a legal settlement or agreement. You know,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
you know that
Nice.
would not be something that would be sustainable and even wanted at that point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you think Wizards of the Coast will release a new patent that's similar to the existing one that covers the CSG concept, the one that expires on October 20th?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I just think that's the one they get nothing from that patent right now. There's no game out there like it. No one's making a game like they're at it. The
Yeah.
Japanese don't care what Wizards of the Coast patents is, and so if they make more Transformer stuff or other stuff, they're not gonna they're not going to abide by that. And most American companies wouldn't even take it in. It would be an import only thing. So my guess is if you're doing a patent and your whole patent is to protect something that you are doing or planning on doing, the odds are they don't care. I think Wizards has bigger and better products and bigger and better fish to fry than to worry about that, in my opinion. And but I don't know. I mean, lawyers be lawyers and they do lawyery things, and I'm a game
Right.
designer that does games. So
Yep.
the bottom line is I don't know if they would do it or care or feel that it's even it's like my guess is that there are enough ways now that people know how to work against those types of patents that they could probably sue it out if they really wanted to. My guess is either if we did something now, we could probably sue it out. But most people will probably just wait till it dies and then it goes away.
Yeah. Makes sense. Do you think
I
Pirate
mean,
CSG?
I'm guessing. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm
No, it's all good.
guessing, and I don't
Yeah.
know. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of these last questions just get into more theoretical stuff. It's just really fascinating, like big topics that I love to cover. So, and on that point, do you think Pirate CSG has a chance to come back in the future?
Well, I guess. I mean, it semi was freakishly weirdly announced, I guess, at the Alliance Open House, according to all of my feeds from everybody.
Yep.
But I don't know. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know anything about it. But look, it's a really good game. We've just talked about it for what now 6, 8 hours about why this game is cool, why it's good, what it does, and therefore no good games die. They will always somehow come back. Now, it will come back without me because I don't work for whatever company's doing it. It may come back with people I know. I have no idea if it's going to be on anybody's radar. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand why I will tell you, I don't understand why it went away. I don't really understand why it stayed away so long. I love it. I love pirates. I'll probably buy it if it does come back because I'm an insane maniac about pirates. But yeah, I mean, if I would love to get Ravensburger to buy it and make something to do with it, But it's probably not going to. It's probably not going to be something that I'm involved in any way, shape, or form, or anything like that. But yeah, I don't. I'm just surprised if you have something that is like people are following it, whatever we are now, 11 years later or 10 years later. Um, yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, there's no game that I know of that has been seriously a long time out of print. I mean, Restoration Games makes a career out of
Yeah.
they're a
Yeah.
business that makes a business out of taking old games and updating and renewing them and doing that stuff. Now, you may like that or not like that, depending on your point of view. But the bottom line is, yeah, that's what they do. So,
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Nice. Do you think that
yeah, I mean,
Zeb Schlassinger's departure from WizKids this past summer is part of why there might be a possible relaunch of the game from WizKids?
I don't know anything about any of that. One, I don't know that there's one person at WizKids. I mean, I know the owners of WizKids, okay, or the managers. I know those guys, but um, um, my I don't know their inner workings, okay, at all. So I can't. I don't like to speculate or talk about stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
about other companies because I don't know.
Yep.
But what I was gonna say is I doubt one person at WizKids is stopping them from making any other game at WizKids. I don't. That doesn't make sense. It's not how businesses usually run. Um, if it's on their agenda or it's in their portfolio, if it's they own it now, then I don't know why they haven't made it. I don't know why they wouldn't have made it. I don't know why they won't make it. So I don't know what ended up uh like I know Justin Zaran, the head of him. He worked with us at WizKids. I know him pretty well.
Yeah.
But I don't like really, like I say, I don't know what that means. Like, if they're doing it, that's really cool. I'm surprised it took so long. If they're not doing it, I don't think that there was one guy that you can hold responsible for that. So
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Do you think Pirate CSG could sell well if it was relaunched as a living card game or as like a non-collectible boxed game?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know the modern
I mean, the
Yeah, I
collect.
mean, first off, all of those formats are good and fine. To
Mhm.
me, like the direction is interesting to go in those like closed sets. Like here's your set of whatever. Let's say it's 1,000 points of English ships, 1,000 points of pirates, 1,000 points of French, whatever Spanish, and then you build different sets out of those closed models. It could sell way better. The weird thing, and this is where it's weird, and I don't know the answer to that. The reason why the booster pack system works so well is because if you busted somehow because they're fragile a ship, you did not feel like you lost anything. You know what I mean? You lost one half of a or one third of a $4 pack.
Yeah.
So you lost something valued in theory at a dollar or less than a dollar.
Yep.
So now if you say in order to play this game, you got to buy a $75 box, and now one thing breaks in it, it's not, you don't look at it as saying, oh, I lost something that's worth, 1/75th of the $75. You're looking at it and saying, I now have a semi-playable faction that I can't recoup. I can't go and buy another $3.75 pack and fix that character. That is the only thing that stops me from thinking, are there other game models that it might work? Now I could be totally wrong, and people can say that doesn't matter, and I could be proven wrong. But that was a thing that we learned very early on in the process, and that was the fact that uh, like the disposable, breakable nature of things was not um, something that stopped people from playing. In
Yeah.
fact, what we found is that sometimes what people would do, because the game was inexpensive or cheap, if you're being mean, was the fact that like I broke my ship. Let's say the top of one of the masts, or one of the masts broke. I would just use a different ship, but use the main card. And so maybe that's how you get around it. You have like a card that is the thing, and the ship is less. It's still important for gameplay, but it's less that the card and the ship are one to one like they are in the old school game. But I don't know. It's a very uh it's a very good question. I think it can work in multiple models. I seriously am now thinking about how do I turn this into a scenario model game because of you and your thing. Now that's going to live in my head for the rest of my life. But yeah, I think that's pretty, that's a pretty cool model to use, I think. I mean, it's really just who they expect the audience to be. I mean, the
Yeah.
really cool thing, and again, I will say it 1,000 times, the really cool thing was that we made this cheap portable game playable by everybody. You start to put higher prices on it, then you start to say it's not playable by everybody, and
Yeah.
that's part of my soul, that we did that. And so I can understand that if it's not going to be something that people um uh do in the future, that's a different model. We just have to see how that model fits with the product.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always found it interesting. The community is kind of sometimes split on collectible versus non-collectible. Like some people love to collect, and a lot of people have spent a ton of money on the game and they hardly ever play. They've got huge boxes or binders full of unpunched cards and stuff, which is all good. And then there's other people that think about, you even mentioned collectible games, and they're like, ah, it's a money grab, and like everybody's against it. So it's always kind of interesting how polarizing it is. I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm a rarity that I'm in the middle, but I'm kind of cool either way with it. I'm just glad the game is really fun and fills that historical, like epic naval adventure niche really well. But anyway, uh, what distribution or packaging method do you think would be optimal for the game if it was in stores today? Like sealed, I mean, it's kind of similar to the last question, but like sealed packs or semi-collectible boxes, or maybe like you said, like $75, like all-in-one non-collectible version.
The bottom line is, my guess is the biggest problem now Has nothing to do with how the game is packaged if you're going to go collectible. The biggest problem now is the speculator market, which is basically by default like power gaming the economics,
Yeah.
and therefore you've added now a new group of people to the mix who are not interested in the game at all, who are interested in doing that, which
Yeah.
means
The
then you have to
arbitrage.
have a certain kind of crazy rarity, and then you have to have the rarity, you have to have the game playable without that rarity, but then you have to have the completists in mind, and you have to have. So my guess would be that if you were going to do it and it is not, collectible, at the booster pack level, or if it is, it's either a soft curve of collectability, or you got to go with some other model. It's new. It's a thing that I am not used to. When we did our games, it was an innocent time, as I keep saying over and over again. Um, so that is a take on it that I don't really know. So my guess would be if you don't want to be in that market, and that's the weird thing is WizKids is in that market. So would they put it out as a collectible because they're in that market, or would they go in a very different direction, more board game esque, if you will, and do like you said, like a living card game or a closed box of X? Um, that would be better, my guess is retailers would prefer that unless you are literally strictly doing a booster collectible game. If you're doing some sort of hybrid, I think you might run into trouble, but I think if
Okay.
you picked a lane, it would be better. But
Okay. Nice. Do you think the game could come back as a digital or virtual game? Like
I
exclusively
think it
digital?
should. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love it. I don't know if it will, but I would love
Yeah.
it. Yes, I'm in that camp.
Nice. Yeah, there's been I play on the Vassal module sometimes, but a lot of people don't like it because it's like two-dimensional and not as pretty as like the SOE version from back in the day. There are a few folks, I'll send you their work on. Some people are kind of try to build essentially a digital version by they've found a method to use like scans of the cards, like essentially just giant pictures of the cards, and then they can separate the pieces and build the ships digitally. um,
Oh
so
wow,
it's
that's
pretty,
kind of cool.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty awesome. And I think between that and like some of the advancements in AI and whatnot that are coming, I think we could see some cool projects, whether or not it's fan made or official. I think we'll see some pretty awesome stuff this decade and maybe beyond as well. So um, have you had personal experience with the patents for other games expiring and then being open to anyone reproducing the game?
No, because I have not. No.
Okay.
I don't even know, to be honest with you. You keep saying that, and if you ask me on in literally right now, and maybe you are thinking in your head, I have no idea what the patent is. Wasn't even a part of that. I didn't even know one existed for it. So all I can tell you is I didn't think you can patent games. So I'm confused by what the patent actually is about, and therefore I am basically like, I don't know. I don't know what happens when a patent runs out, and whether or not it is. I'm not going to read what you wrote.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's more for like the constructible concept of the game rather than like a specific one. And they talk about like movable parts and things like that. But awesome. If Pirate CSG came back, would you want to return to it?
Uh, um, wow. I don't know. Would I love to return to it? I would love to do the Pirates CCG game. I would be interested in that, but my job right now has me making all kinds of games and all kinds of genres and all kinds of stuff. If you were only going to hire me to work on this game, I would say no, because
Hmm.
one, what if it's not successful day one? What if it doesn't come out? Then I'm technically out of a job. So the answer is very crass, unfortunately, because of, we're now in a position where we need to be, um, I need to look at like my life and my future.
Yeah.
The answer is probably no. There's only one game that I have, or one game line that I've dropped other jobs for, and that's Shadowrun. Um, and that's how come I worked on all the various Shadowruns over the years. But I don't think so. I mean, I'd give my teeth to do it, but I don't necessarily know that I can give up what I have now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's a grown up decision. I hate being a grown up.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand that. If it would have to be part of Ravensburger or like a multi-game job or whatever, and it might depend on like the team involved and what direction they wanted the game to
Yeah,
go in.
and what they wanna do with it. I mean,
Exactly.
really, like I said, stuff was made and, um, decisions were made, I should say, and decisions on my skills and what can we do and my passion and what we could do. So, the game was created under certain circumstances, under certain, abilities, and with certain, uh, a through line. I would need to know, be like, if anything, like in this case or any case of a game, I need to know what my role was, what the through line of that role was, what the end games for the company are. Those are like stuff I would never have thought to ask 15, 20 years ago if I was going to go from company A to company to B to work on something. That is different. Um, Seth and I talk a lot about this because he was involved with the Clicks games well after he left WizKids in various freelance capacities. And at one point, he just said, I don't like what you're doing to this. I spent a lot of my energy making a game that did X, and you're making a game that does Y. And I don't know that I can make that game because I made X. And so now you're asking me to undo all the things I made to get it here. That could be the case. They could be starting over. They can be making a new game. It could not be point based. I have no idea. Not that those are things that I would say no to, but those are all the questions I would ask if even if it was handed, given to me. And my takeaway from all that is I would rather make something new than make it. I would rather make a new Pirates game, even as cool as a collectible model mini styrene based game, than I would to basically go in and either be told make the old game again, which is not really going to be fun. I left it because I felt that we were at a point where it could just stop. We were done. We are not moving the game forward. Or if they say no, we're just going to do this, and not that we're going to convince or con anybody, but we're going to uh, make the same. We're going to change everything. And at that point, then I'm like, why did you call me? You can hire anybody to change the game. Are you just using it to make it sound like there's a link to the past? You're not asking me to do any of my skills or anything on it. I mean, I'm now an experienced, you know, uh, game designer with a set of credentials and a set of what people expect of me. So yeah, if it like somehow ended up being in Ravensburger's lap, dude, I would stop everything to say I want to make this game. Going to another company where I don't know any of those goals and concepts, that would be scary. Do I think it's worth that game coming out again? 100%. Do I think it will be, that's the question more for you guys and the fans is what if they change a bunch of stuff? What if it's not compatible with the old game? What if it's a brand new thing that just uses that name? How much is that going to matter to people and what will that do? And that's where I think that they're probably making like long and hard decisions. The photos we saw that you and I saw from that Alliance Open House. I mean, they were using ads from when Tiffany was there. So,
Yeah.
so at one point you got to go, well, I think they're making the same game. Are they going to re-release all the old stuff? Are they going to release half the old stuff and intermingle it with new stuff? How is it going to operate? I have no idea. I have no insight. No one's told me a word about it. But I'm just curious, like, how they're going to go about it and how they're going to do they even know you guys exist? Not that I don't mean to be mean about it, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
assume that you guys, that there's a constant dialogue, not constant dialogue, but they're observing that the fandom. Um, but when it's all said and done, the answer is gotta be no. I wouldn't do it, but it's not gonna hurt my soul. It already hurts my soul just thinking about that question.
Yeah, no worries at all. You mentioned, well, yeah, I'll tangent away first. Yeah, for me, just to return to it real quick. I think it would have to be compatible for me to want to buy into it personally, but I can't speak for the majority of the community in that regard. So I know some other people, a lot of people in the Pirates community are more into the gaming than me. I know I understand I kind of pigeonholed myself. I'm kind of like the Pirates guy, and like I don't have time for a lot of all the other games and stuff. But I'm not sure what the community would think of that. But I think that might be my question of the day. But anyway, going off on tangents now. I heard you said something about towards the end of your tenure, you felt like the game was not moving forward. I don't know
No, I didn't
why.
mean that.
Oh, okay.
That was a mistake on my part.
Okay.
I wasn't moving forward.
Yeah, I
I
think you
was
were.
only working on the one game. Other games were taken away from me. I only had the Pirates game, and so I wasn't moving forward, not the game.
Oh, I
Um,
see what you're saying.
uh,
Okay.
and sorry about that.
No,
It
you're
was
good.
a personal. It was part of the personal, like, where's my role in things.
Yeah, yeah.
My role was being more and more diminished, and also like as you discovered later on, they were doing things where it was not a complete set. It was a set with one-off products that may have been, when we started doing the boxes, that may have been part of it. Plus, like I said, it was now a V3. We are now owned by a third company, or we were owned by a new Tops ownership, and they did not, where priorities were laying in. It was like, hey, let's get more, you know, like, double down on like Halo clicks and Star Wars um, styrene game and all this kind of stuff. And so became less about what I was doing, less about pirates from a big picture corporate setup, that I was like, wait, I don't see me going anywhere here. I'm actually being kind of squeezed out. And while I love the game I'm working on, I will always love pirates. It is like one of my two or three most proudest moments as a game mate that I made that game. The bottom line is, I could see the writing on the wall of where the future of things were. Had nothing to do with pirate sales or if the company didn't like pirates or any of that kind of stuff. So
Yep. Awesome. Do you have any idea how the shuffling the deck, like card game only version, did in sales? Came out in like 2012,
I didn't even
2013.
know that that existed. So the answer to your question is no. I had no idea.
Yep, no worries. If you were trying to bring the game back now with its current situation, what would you do? Like if you had
What do you
to.
mean? Your current situation being what? That it's owned by another company? I mean, people have to understand a certain set of parameters when having a discussion like this. One, I don't know the facts. I don't know why it's not brought back. I have no idea what WizKids is doing. I have no idea what their strategy is, and I don't have no idea what they are bringing back, if they are in fact bringing something back. I know nothing about any of that stuff. All I can talk about is how it was when we were working on it, and then maybe some generic business stuff that people don't understand. So there's under a what if scenario, I could say, here's how I might bring the game back. I haven't thought about the game, so that wouldn't be very fair either, because I would just literally be talking based on the question you asked. So to really answer the question, I have no idea. I really don't know what is the I don't know what the market for pirates is right now. I don't know what the tone is. Like, do you go fantastical more than you go realistic? Do you do like a somewhere in between, like a historical fiction thing, like we started with, and then evolve it into a fantastical from a storyline? I don't know what story we're telling the consumer. That's number one. Whatever company owns it, whatever they're doing, they have to figure out what their story is to consumer. Now, a really good game existed for a very long time and now still has a following an even longer time. So now you're in a position where, if you're trying to do, like I said a little bit earlier, are you going up against that and embracing it? Are you going against it and rebuilding it? Are you, I mean, we watch it happen in nearly every media. Somebody hires a new author to write, famous author characters, and you get people who love it and people who hate it. You get movie franchises that totally reset. They're going to do a new Harry Potter TV show. What the hell's that's all about? What's going to happen? And then you just like, okay, they decided to, like, redo it, start at square one. Other people say, no, we're going to build off of it. We're going to do the Ahsoka TV show because Ahsoka was in Clone Wars, who was in, Rebels. And now we're going to tell a storyline. We're going to tie her into the big fiction of the big movies. And it's like, okay, so now you're doing like a hybrid thing where you're new characters and old characters. I have no idea for this, like, because I don't know what I would do if given the operating. If you said, Mike, we just gave you Pirates of the Caribbean, what do you want to do with it? I'd have to think through all those things.
Yep.
I look at what you were doing and going, okay, well, here's a guy who's got fleets and fleets and fleets and ships. Is that the truth? Is that where we need to take the game, or do we need to drive it to 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds who think pirates are still cool and really love pirates, and we make a game for them? I mean, that was the decision early on. We knew we had gamers who like pirates and ship battles and all that kind of stuff, and we went and said, now we're going for $3 booster packs. One pack could play a game, and you play a game in 20 minutes. Those kinds of decisions, they're not made arbitrarily. They're made because you're looking for that audience. So if you handed it to me today, it just said, you now own it. It's all Mike Mulvihill's property. What has intrigued me about it is a lot of stuff we've talked about over this last way too many hours. And, what have we done from what is a business? What is a logical business standpoint? And that's not what fans want or hear. I mean, but that's the reality of it, because one, if I'm going to do it, I want it to be successful. If I want it to be successful, I want it to be as successful as the one before it, and maybe even more so. So those are the kind of stuff that goes into that kind of decision. But to just say, hey, what's the goal? What's the golden apple for this? I don't know. There's too many parts that have to be decided and determined, and to be honest with you, it's not my bailiwick in some cases, and it's not where my brain is anymore. So it's just it's a weird question, because like it's more of a, like I say, it's a what if. It's in what ifs. If we know anything from 50 years of Marvel comics, can be anything, and so it can be anything. What I want it to be is going to really depend on what I can do with it you know
Yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense, but
No, it
I
did. It
it's
absolutely did.
it's
It's a
it's a
lot of
very
variables.
it's a very touchy subject, because I'm talking to a guy who's a fan. You are a fan. And if I sit here and I tell you you're a fan, and yet when it's all said and done, I may change everything that you love about the game in order to make it successful in 2023, you're going to be very angry.
No,
And so,
no,
I'm not saying you. I don't mean
yeah,
you, Ben, specifically. I mean, there are going to be people who are going to be out there and say that kind of stuff. So I have no idea what WizKids is planning on doing. I don't know what they want to do. I haven't talked to anybody at WizKids. Well, that's not actually true. Our old marketing director now works for them, and I saw him at Gen Con. So I have talked to somebody from WizKids in the last year, but that was the last person I've talked to from WizKids in a really, really long time. I see Justin at shows and say hi to him. Um, uh, but I've never talked to anybody from Wizkids. I know nothing about what they're doing. I was as surprised and shocked as you did. And my response was to you, which is, I will tell it right now, is that I texted you back and I said, no good games ever go away. They
yeah,
never do. So it doesn't surprise me that it might be coming back, and hopefully they appreciate the work we did in it to make it where it is enough for them to think about coming back. But I can't guarantee any of that.
yep, yeah. No, that answer made a ton of sense. There's just too many variables to really go into detail. And I don't think I'd be angry. I understand like the business side of it and the need to make a profit, and especially if it's collectible, you got to pump out units and sell to keep it going and whatnot. So yeah. So to wrap up, we just got some kind of random little questions. What are you doing now?
What do I do now? So I work at Ravensburger. So for those who don't know it, we're an international game company. Um, we are our main, well, yes. So I work in the board game team. I am creatively adjacent to the Lorcana team. So if those out there that know about Lorcana now, because it's all over everything, it's a collectible card game. Um, but I work on the board game side, so products under my Ballywick, if you will, are the two that I am in charge of and run like I ran. The Pirates are the villainous line of games and horrified. Those are my games. I make basically about 5 to 6 board games a year for Ravensburger. So it's like those three are the Star Wars, two villainesses and horrified every year, and then I make usually about three other games um, for them as well. And I've been doing this for like 6 years. I love it. It is awesome to be out of software and in board games. Um, I still do, like I said, if I can, I will help mentor anybody who asks me. So that's a cool thing on how to do proposals and how to talk about games to other people and how to teach games and teach about games. So I do that. I've been doing that like in high schools and colleges whenever everybody wants me to come in and speak. I did that earlier this year, or I guess the end of this school year. So it would have been in the spring at UW Bothell for a friend of mine who teaches there. And I'm going to be doing something at a school that my wife works at in February, or I think January, February. So, but mainly I make games for people, and I hope that they have fun. I use that model that I said earlier, where I start with what's the story of this product, and then I work backwards. I work, as you heard, I basically work a lot with Disney, a lot with Star Wars, a lot with Marvel. So I'm using all that stuff that I learned is early back with Pirates of the Caribbean and Sony, online to determine how you do properties and working with other IPs. There's a bunch of other stuff too. I've worked with Universal Studios on games. I worked with a bunch of other people for Ravensburger, and that's my day job. And so that's what I do. And in the evenings, I come home and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe that was my day.
Nice.
My head hurts." And yeah, that's it. I live in
Awesome.
Seattle now, not in Chicago. I lived in Seattle when I moved here for
Yeah.
Wizkids, so I guess it's always Seattle. Still Chicagoan at heart. Yeah, that's
Nice.
it. Play some uh play some video games solo just to kind of like as a palate cleanser, game
Yeah.
as often as I can with people. That's where we're at.
Nice.
So
Where can people find you online if you want them to follow you?
well, my work email is mike.mulvihill at ravensburger.com, so that's cool. I'm on various medias. If you ever type in the phrase prime runner, just PRIME, like underscore runner if you're on Steam, but in most cases just prime runner. I think on my PlayStation I might have some numbers after it or something. That's usually my go-to on all the other medias. Prime Runner. It's an old Shadowrun reference of a character I made in that game. So I'm on that on Instagram. I'm now on TikTok, if you can believe that, because of Ravensburger.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to see a 60-year-old man on TikTok, so I downplay that part. Facebook, there. If you ever want to reach me, you can friend me or send me a contact. That's just Mike Mulvihill. Reddit is probably Prime Runner. I think I might also have a Ravensburger account on Reddit. Discord. Am I Prime Runner in your account?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, Prime Runner. See, there I am. That's me. So I'm on Discord too. If you chat me up. I use it mostly for work, but if you say, "Hey, I'm not in your work," you can do that, and then I'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that covers all the social medias. I guess I'm on LinkedIn as Mike Mulvihill, so if you need me in that regard, I'm there. I think that's nearly all the. I'm not on Twitter or X or Twitter X
Yeah.
or X Twitter or whatever it is. I'm not on that anymore. So I don't do that thing.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. I guess
Awesome.
that's how you get a hold of me if you ever wanted to have what is now a 10-hour conversation about games. You know who to contact.
Awesome. Anything that you want to promote or give a shout out to?
Well, I mean, I will give a shout out to all the peeps. One, you. Obviously, you're listening to this podcast, so you already know Ben. But if you don't, or if somebody tips you off, great guy, great podcast, great enthusiasm for that.
Thank you.
My games are almost always found in Target. So I mean, obviously, I promote my games. Oogie Boogie for Disney Villainous just came out, and now we have a horror fight coming out in October called Greek Monsters, which is really really cool. Very proud of both of those. Um, like you've talked to a lot of the people I know, so there's not a lot of shout outs to be done there. Like I know you talked to Shane already and Tiffany, and now you talk to Ethan.
Yep.
Those are all people I worked in daily at WizKids, so that's really cool. That you talk to them. They're really great people and friends, and in some cases, Tiffany's almost family. So that's really cool. Let's see. That's really it from a product or what I'm working on. And keep looking for my games. Please keep buying them because I love making them. Let me know if I stray from my paths of stuff. And yeah, hopefully we keep doing this for a long time. And hopefully there's a really cool Pirates game that comes out that captures the imagination like Spanish Main did. So.
Yep. Awesome. All right, we'll get to the final segment. One of my favorites, questions of the day. So you can think about yours. Feel free to ask multiple too, because we've been going so long. You could have multiple questions of the day. That's totally fine. While I'm rambling, you can think of one if you want. You don't have to. But mine for the audience actually kind of came up as a result of this discussion, which the question for the community is, would you buy a similar but not compatible version of Pirates CSG or Pirates of the Spanish Main IP from WizKids, assuming it was using the same intellectual property and had, maybe some of the same characters or art and things like that? Um, I'm just kind of curious what the community would think of that. Not necessarily a miniatures game, but probably at least with constructible ships. So probably not like the Shuffling the Deck card game. Probably more similar to Pirates, but maybe similar but not compatible. I'm curious what the community, if they would buy that or not. So, and then if you'd like, you can ask as many questions as you'd like of the audience.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that would intrigue me would be like what I'm seriously, it's living in my head and I can't get rid of it, and it's the concept of the like the scenario based gameplay model. That is just really cool. My question would be, would people be interested in that? The second question, which is a kind of a follow up, like a comma to that, is how do you play the game? Do you play it like, do you enjoy it because it's a 30-minute quick play 40-point game, or do you play it the way Ben talked about, like with 60, 70, 80 points that may take 2, 3, 4 hours? I'm very curious about that because to me that's the core of the game, and I believe people may like A but they also do B, or may like B and also do A, and I'd be real curious to hear how people divide that up. The other question is, and this is a what if question for fans, and I can probably guess how everybody was going to say. But one of the things, like I said earlier, was a big decision that we had to make was when we would come out with a new set with a new flag, if you will, and a new style of play for different models. Would you have liked to see their stories continue through the sets? So, no one, maybe the J. No, I don't think so. I think their ships did, but I think the ships always transferred, but I don't know if the factions ever did. So, if, like, for instance, if we had done Curse Nord, would that have been interesting, or the Norsemen, or whatever it was? Would we, if we had done cursed things, so that the factions still, their storyline still continued as we continued the other storylines? Because that was an actual conscious decision that we made. That was like, okay, in the next set, we're introducing a new faction. And the other faction, where you could still play it, was not something that we, again, because we needed to get pirates in English and Spanish and Americans and whatever in every set, we kind of started to downplay. some of the really cool sets we put in. And I'd just be curious, like, is that okay? Did you go, the Nords were good and that's you got everything we wanted in there? Or would you have liked to have seen Nords as they moved in different things in different ways? Nords against the, in a set that was not Nord based or Norsemen. I think I can't remember what did we call them, Norsemen, right? Nords are from Elder Scrolls.
Vikings. That's the faction
Vikings. Oh,
name.
great. So we called it the most common name, and I'm making up names. So, would it have been cool to see that what we could have done there? And even if it was only one ship or one or two ships or a couple of crew, would that have been something that would have been interesting? Or was it, like being one and done, was that okay? I was always curious about that because that was something that we debated a lot about. Like, do we bring them back? Do we wait a set and bring them back in this set? Do we, when we went to the cursed model and the IP, how much of those were part of it? And, I don't necessarily know that we ever had a fan answer to that question. It was just internal, like production math level question and answer. So
Yeah.
those would be my questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. That was great. All right, thanks again for coming on, Mike. This was just absolutely astounding and like
That's all right. My wife's
easily
gonna be laughing at me when I go into the other room because she's like, "Oh, are you gonna come in for dinner?" And I'm like, "Well, if I'm done by whatever." And then
like
of
9 o'clock.
course
Yeah.
it's now eight
Awesome.
o'clock again.
Yep. All right. Thanks again.
All right, man.
Thanks everybody for
Hey,
listening.
Ben, anytime. If you need anything, give me a call, give me a message or whatever. And yeah, this is awesome. Let me know the next time you're playing. I might join in again.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Feel free to like,
Yeah.
subscribe to the
Bye,
podcast.
everybody.
Check out the links in the description below for some of the stuff we talked about, and let us know your answers to the question today. So this was the Pirate CSG podcast, signing out, and thanks for listening.